Check one, check two, and we are, I think, recording. Awkward moments. So, currently driving home. It's Friday, June 23rd, I believe, and driving back from Pomona and trying to make sure I at least get onto the freeway. And the echo from my voice is throwing me off slightly. It's gonna tease. Very basic outline, but we're again trying to do progress and attaining goals. So, goals and progress are kind of synonymous with each other. How do you succeed in life? Earl Nightingale mentioned that success is a progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And hopefully, with the light behind you and like the angel of light thing, you don't think of me as a devil. But that is a really cool shot. um, Sorry, there's the idea of distraction ADD. So the note card is meant to be a little bit more on the idea of not necessarily prudence so much as I suppose you could say prudence. Prudence on keeping track and on task. So Earl Nightingale said that a goal is a progressive realization of a worthy ideal because you can have goals that cause harm to others or that may not be worthwhile. Now, some people may say that there's a relativistic sense associated with it, and whether you subscribe to that philosophy or not, there's just saying that you need to realize that sometimes success is going in that direction, that sometimes you can only do a little bit at a time. Sometimes stuff is stopped because you're emotionally drained, you're mentally drained, or there's just stuff comes up. And that all being said, you're a success when you keep making headway there. And sometimes you can't. Okay. And sometimes you just have to, pat yourself on the back for the even the minor successes that you have. And there's no use in beating yourself up over things. I can say that one of my goals is having good relationships, and if I falter there, let that discontent and moment lead to better outcomes over time, but don't let it drop you down to such a degree that you don't take any striding towards any of your parts of your goal or making any progress on your goals. So, that all being said, the idea of having a dream or a vision, say, for example, you know, you may say, I want to be successful in life, and that's all well and good. But for me, it's like, what does that mean? And so when you do something called goal setting and you use the acronym SMART, which means there's a few small variations on it. The one from mindtools.com indicated that there's being specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. I always thought it was realistic. We'll go over that in a moment. But what happens is you can have a vision of being successful, but then it's like, hey, what does success look like? And so we start defining success as being financially viable or having a home or having a family. And so that vision may have multiple components that now become multiple goals. Now, going off the acronym SMART, when you say, as you can tell, we're beginning to define success. So that person is like, hey, having a good job, so I'm financially viable, or some way to make income that I feel like it's morally and ethically right. So now it's, for example, breaking that goal, because you can look at family, you can look at everything else, and it's like, okay, you some things may not be controllable. And so sometimes, even if you're doing everything right, for example, with making a family, you may not find the right person within 3 to 5 years. You know, to find the right person, start getting married to them, and then having a child. Obviously, you can do it the wrong way, but when you start doing goals and you start looking at factors, it's, if you do it the wrong way, will that serve you better or not, right? So, for example, drug dealing, maybe someone on here is doing something that's illicit or not really looked well upon. And now it's a question of, okay, we're here, right? No judgment. It's like, are you okay with that? And if you're okay with that, it might be saying, like, for love of God, there's other things that you can do. And those talents may have been perverted or twisted, but God has something better that he'll use those talents and bless you even more, because that does destroy people and hurt people. Of Again, each person is free to do what they want, but in the end, there's eternal consequences, or there's other consequences. Drug dealer, if you get caught, jail. Um, there's probably a multitude of different things. We could mention OnlyFans, or we could mention just maybe it may not be a gender correct thing. You may be a male and a nanny, but you find fulfillment there, or you are a male and run a daycare center. I don't know. It's just there's finding what you want to do, and then realizing that there's going to be consequences with it. Can we deal with those consequences? So now, looking at that financial viability, right? So we find something that you feel is morally and ethically right for you, and you're like, hey, I think I can be proud of doing this job, and I would enjoy it. Okay, cool. Do we actually have the skill sets necessary to do this job? That's a question you have to ask, right? So, uh, I don't think the book Talent, I don't think there's a book that says talent is not enough, but not having talent may, or probably is definitely going to prevent you from rising up to the top of the field and claiming the lion's share of that money that's in that field. Are you okay with that? Now, coming back to SMART goals specific, like, okay, like, is this, sorry, there's specific and measurable, right? So in this context, it's making, say, for example, you want to become a computer programmer or data scientist and making 150 to $250,000 a year. Okay, cool. Just run with that. Maybe just, sorry, there's inflation. It's like, I don't know the fields right now. So, and looking at the freeway, everything just split. I'm like, I'm confused. So, going along with computer programming. Okay, ChatGPT is out, like different programs that can create coding. So, you may have to make sure that as you go into that is a good idea. That might come around steps of, is it relevant or attainable? We're still playing around with this ourselves too. So coming back to our hypothetical example, we want to become a computer scientist, okay, or computer programmer. Cool. All right. So measurable, that may include the, okay, classes needed to go in that direction, right? From the book So Good They Can't Ignore You, it would be developing career capital in that field so you can go up and get the money that you're looking for. because if you have the skill sets that they're looking for that are in demand, then, and if your skills are in demand, then you can kind of get a premium for what you're looking for and have a little bit more control on your job. At least that's what the book was teaching. The So we have measurable. So we have the classes to make sure that we're going towards that goal. But also we know that, hey, we want to make 150 grand a year in computer science or computer programming. Cool. Going off of the idea of attainable and realistic, it's, do we have the abilities to pursue this degree or this thing? Or if we decide to do business, do we have the abilities and talent and resources to do it? And then as the Mind Tools was indicating, it's like, okay, the difference between attainable is like, okay, can we grab it? Is it within our constraints? Realistic seems like it blends together. And traffic is kind of a little bit muddled, but we got some good flow. I would knock on wood, but that's all I got. The thing is that those two kind of confuse me, but essentially what we're trying to get at is like, hey, you want to become a computer programmer, you want to do all this stuff. Do you have the time available to pursue this goal? You have defined it, you specified what you're going for, you know how to measure it and make sure that you're there. Now, do you have the competency and the skill sets to excel in that field to be able to get the $150,000 to $250,000 that you're wanting, within a reasonable amount of hours and timing? That may or may not conflict with the rest of your goals and your vision for your life. If your desire is to make that much money and still have a family lifetime and pursuing goals and hobbies, you want to make sure that your goals don't conflict with each other. I think, as Earl Nightingale pointed out at one point, it was in the, not The Strangest Man in Babylon, The Strangest Secret. Yeah, The Strangest Man in Babylon, the mashup of the century. And, financial stewardship, going off The Richest Man in Babylon, is always a good thing to keep in mind. Sorry, hold on. I guess this kind of wanders a little bit away, but at the same time, we realize that does everything blend together or does it push apart? Because you may get one goal, but that may put you out of alignment for another one. Last thing you want to do is go after a goal that allows you to have the money that you want, but not the family or the rest of the lifestyle that you want. All right, so moving away from that point. So can we reach it with our current resources? Of Is it realistic within the environment that we're in? Can we pursue this? I think another part is probably with you. Okay, so attainable, like, can we get it? Realistic, like, hey, there may be people making that 150 to $250,000 a year, but can we get that part of the field? So, as Gary Kasparov from How Life Imitates Chess would probably indicate, it's before you take an advance forward, let's go ahead and just look. For example, he gave the idea of, before you go from one career to another, make sure you realize why you want to leave the first career, so that way you don't run into the issues on the second one. So that all being said, you can, in general, extrapolate from that and say, like, okay, let's go ahead and look. Is this going to meet my needs? Is it going to be there? Again, for example, ChatGPT and other AI programs, they, again, I haven't personally done it, but there seems to be some changes in the field. So it's a question of what new skill sets will you need to be in position 3 to 5 years from now to get the salary or the pay that you want instead of kind of a wrecked Hulk. I used to be at a trade school for Evers College, and there was a lot of people that were going for dental assisting, and it I was like, how many people are needed for dental assisting? I don't know, but that was a question, right? Because you'd be stuck with the loans. Electrician, I could imagine there being a lot of demand for that, and you can do it on the side, but then they had high some of them had large loans that had high interest rates, for example. Uh, Mine seemed within reason, but it was like 11,000 that because I didn't make payments, it went up. But I could work at a place or do it on the side. So again, I went into that because I wanted to be able to make some money part time on the side that I would be fine with and pursue biology. I'm intelligent enough for biology, just not studious enough, or at least not structured enough. So doing something like this, I can get into a habit of it. And this maybe took 10 minutes, but perhaps right now I had a lot of resistance to that. It might be that there's just a mental mindset block there, which again, going over your is it attainable and realistic, you may have to look at yourself and ask, what's holding me back or what might hold me back in pursuit of stuff. I was telling myself I'd do these in 15-minute shots. So timing is currently, I think, 16 minutes. No, 17. 3 minutes, Jack. All right. So we then go with time. Like, hey, what's a realistic amount of time? Like 2 hours? 2 hours. 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, given your time commitments and everything else. And again, sometimes you may not hit your time frame because there's stuff that's outside of your control. Maybe the school shuts down, or maybe you have a life event. If you get killed, that's a life event. The end of, or you end up, losing a limb or something, just something drastic, or family happens. Life just happens. Okay, so we have to adjust the time frame now. Now, GOSPA is goals, objectives, strategy, plan, and actions. And that was borrowed from LinkedIn by Garrick, I want to say Verd Mueller, Werdmuller. And Garrick is spelled Garrick. And I'm probably going to butcher this, but he had a very nice synopsis and summing up of it. So, whereas SMART, the SMART acronym applies to getting a goal and making it really specific and detailed and getting a good grasp of it. GOSPA is meant to get you to achieve your goals. So you have your goal, and then you have what are called objectives, the things that need to happen to achieve your goal. Like, okay, so we want to become a computer scientist or computer programmer that makes, okay, $350,000 a year. Okay, obviously, first thing is schooling and classes, or at least some sort of educational or training. Okay, once we achieve that, what other objectives do we need to keep meeting in order to get up to that $350,000 milestone? Do we need to work at other companies and develop that expertise? Is it that we need to develop specific areas within that field, or maybe related fields, or maybe even unrelated fields? So, for example, the computer programming and computer science, or computer programming and data science. computer programming and business, or computer programming and leadership, project development. Yes, everyone knows about agile development until they don't. I don't know. And it's just, sorry, waterfall development versus agile development. You know, the idea is that agile means that we get functionality all the time within 2 to 3 week sprints, and we check in with the project to make sure, hey, are we on target or not? Versus waterfall development, 9 month project. Hope for the love of God that we got the right feedback and information at the beginning. So by the end of this whole thing, we had this massive, and it's either good or not. I'm sure there's differences in opinion on that synopsis, but that would be going over on a different time about that. Uh, Sorry, there was the sort of idea of wanting to do the von Clausewitz edition of it, where you know enough about a field or something to be able to discuss it and utilize it, but not so much that that's it. Like von Clausewitz from On War, I believe, he taught soldiers, and one of his things was he said, "Hey, you don't need to know how the artillery horse harness was made at the factory. Okay, you don't need to know that, or how the bores and muzzles and all this other stuff are made. You do need to know how long it takes for you to get an artillery piece from point A to point B. You, whether it's in the mud or on roads or in good conditions or under fire. Okay, you need to know what you need to know that's relevant for you. So if you're ordering computer programmers around, you know, that methodology of agile development is a useful thing, but then it's a question of, you know, you would want to know, sorry, I was watching a car getting into traffic, you would want to know at least something about computer programming and science, but, you know, can you give the order, or how much detail do you need there? And anyone that knows computer programming is like probably enough to make sure you realize that's possible and attainable and realistic. Again, it's something that I've wanted to do, but have ADD moments, or at least just been not. So, okay. So we mentioned objectives. Now, strategy, the methods for achieving those objectives, and get to work. And it may be that we realize that we have a full plate on ourselves, and so it might just be as simple as doing one class a semester, or one class at a time, or that we build up to a certain level of speed or ability and adjust expectations accordingly for the time bound portion. The Now, perhaps it might be said that understanding yourself and understanding what you're getting into, you know, since in the art of war, you'll always be successful if you understand yourself and your opponent, because you'll know when to run, when to attack, and when to adjust yourself, because you know the situation overall. But if you don't factor in yourself or your capacities or what's available around you, you may implement the wrong strategy for your objectives, and your goals may not come to fruition, or get frustrated because you're not making progress, because you're maybe taking on too much at the same time, or you may not have the competencies there. So there might be a caveat there of saying, like, let's make sure that we're capable first of this field transition. And again, the GOSPA might be multi-tiered, where maybe the first set of goals is asking, hey, what am I actually good enough that I can get the numbers I want financially, or getting the relationships I want, or developing spiritually or physically. Okay, so now that we look at methods and plan or strategies, there's the plan. And so it may be your plans start in August for going to classes, and then your 4-year plan is established to hit this thing. And then once you're out of school, you get strategy versus planning, right? Strategy is like, hey, let's go ahead and find different companies in general that would give ourselves potential to go further in our field and develop the core sets of information and skills and experience that we need to get up there in terms of pay scale. But then your plan may specifically be, okay, let's go ahead and focus on getting a job at, say, Apple or Microsoft, and then, or Google. And then from there, there may be working in Silicon Valley, although that feels like it'd be more like a wavy crapshoot thing, depending on if you're working with a startup or, uh, would a startup be willing to cultivate you or not? I suppose that was probably what is in the back of my mind. The Again, whatever that looks like in that field, that plan of going to different companies to build yourself up, I would have to research that for myself to explore that area, for example. That being said, you may have to ask, am I willing to move, for example? But finally, actions. What are the specific actions I need to be doing daily, weekly, monthly, yearly to achieve that outcome? And the thing is, there's Brian Tracy, the ABCDE method, and there's the idea that you have tasks, and the thing is that you need to make sure that you accomplish your most important tasks that tie in for your plans that make it all the way up to achieving your goals. And so an A task is something that if it doesn't get done, sorry, there's two philosophies here. We'll go with the ABCDE method, then we'll go with the 4 grid, which is, I think, Steve Covey, which is importance versus urgency. And so ABCDE method is that your A tasks are the ones that have the most important bearing on your career or on your life. If you don't do these tasks, they can't be done by anyone else, and doing them or not doing them will have a major impact on your life down the line. Um, so, for example, turning in that lottery ticket that you found and that you won, and if you don't get in by 5 o'clock, you lose it. It's invalidated. That should be your A1 task, unless you have something worth more valuable than a lottery ticket. Or turning in a report that by the end of the day that if you don't, you get fired, or that may lead you to a promotion. Now, again, a B task has mild consequences. You may get yelled at, but if it's between losing your job and just getting yelled at, keep your job by doing the A task, get yelled at for not completing the B task. C tasks have like no repercussions whatsoever. Not meeting a coworker for lunch. You're friends with them, so it's like, okay, you missed lunch. But if relationships are important and you haven't been pouring in there, you have to your priorities versus your directions that you want to go in life, and now that blends in together with, say, for example, the on time and on target manager, which looks at prioritizing your life and your values. And That's a different discussion, but that might help clarify your goals and what you're willing to sacrifice for them and what you're willing to push to get to where you want to go. There's something to be said about, sorry, okay, A, B, C, D. So D is delegating. Is there anything I can delegate or hand off to someone else? And it's, I might be mixing up a few things. Brian Tracy discusses this method, and it's really cool. And part of it is, whatever task is not worth your time. For example, if I want to get paid $150 an hour, which 40 hours a week, holy moly, is, sorry, 40 hours a week times 150 is 6,000 times 52 is around 300 grand, 312. Now, the thing is that, if you do consulting on the side, you may be able to charge more for that too. But all that being said, that, sorry, brain, we're, when you sacrifice your time for a task that, maybe you can hire a lawnmower person for, you know, $200 a month to take care of everything well for you. Now it's 4 hours of your time or whatever amount of time that they use. Now your time's freed up to pursue other things or enjoy quality of life, right? At the same time, you're trying to make sure you're getting your quality of life too. Money is a tool. What do you want to use it for? Happiness, ultimately, right? But what is happiness? So having a quality time, you know, quantity and quality of time. But okay, uh, delegating, hire the landscaping people, right? Or anyone else that can take care of the errands, DoorDash, for example. And so you don't have to spend time doing that task if you're already making more than enough money. It's like, hey, I can free up my time now by, I guess, technically delegating and eliminating maybe something to study up to convey for the next session or write in the comments or description. The final point to say is not final, sorry. Elimination is looking at your tasks and everything else in your life and saying like, hey, zero-based thinking is another concept that Brian Tracy brings up. And he discusses the idea of zero-based thinking with, if we had it to do it over again, would we do it again what we know now? And if your answer is no, that's something that you should get rid of. So, your life and your tasks, hey, there's one person, I don't know if it was Steve Covey or Brian Tracy, but they mentioned someone that used to go golfing a lot. And, you know, it was fine before in their life, but then they uh, had children, they got married, they expanded their business, and now their marriage was suffering, their business was suffering, and they're like, what was going on? So they looked at it and they found out that their golfing, they had to give up the golfing, and that just made everything else better. So sometimes what do you have to eliminate to help you succeed? You trade off lower value tasks, again, that lawn mowing, right? Landscaping. Even if you could do it within an hour, right? Would your time be better served spending it in career development or just living, enjoying time with your family? And that's it. You know, if it makes sense to get rid of it because you have the finances to do so and you know where you want to go for it. Okay. Nothing wrong with hiring out. Sorry, there's a fluffy cat. And I was just hoping not to run it over because it's at a stop or at a light and saw it going across the street. Go ADD. And I suppose that kind of wraps things up. Oh, right. Um, the foregrid, the important versus urgent. So the thing is that the quadrants are urgent and important, urgent, not important, important and not urgent, and not urgent, not important. Looking at the ABCDE method, basically the important and urgent are like your A tasks. Your urgent but not important would definitely be probably like a C task or an E task. Like, hey, Taco Tuesday, we gotta do this. Crazy look in the person's face, they need food. But then there's the admission that it probably doesn't have any consequences and it isn't going to really help you in your career path or your development towards your goals, whatever they are in terms of meaning and development. Even a pie eating contest or a cake eating contest, if you're trying to get physically fit and take care of issues so you don't have diabetes or that you're thin with 5% body fat, there's looking at how such activities may affect you later. So even though it might be urgent because it's coming up tomorrow, it's not important for you with relation to your goals and your dreams and vision for your life. The thing is that there's going to be a lot of stuff that it's going to be important, but it's not going to be urgent. So you're not going to have anything telling you you need to do it now, except for your mindset. So bringing it all together, your goals and your dreams, they're going to be obstacles in the way of it. You may be able to define it well with SMART goals. You may be able to piece it all together and have GOSPA, your goals with your objectives, your strategy, your plan, and your actions. But then there's going to be times when it's easy to get off track because there's other stuff that's urgent and important. And then there's distractions that are urgent but not important. And then there's stuff that's not urgent, not important. That's competing with the area where you're going to see a lot of growth if you do it. The important but not urgent. When am I going to look into getting into classes for moving in my career field? When am I going to sit down with myself and do an outline that would help me exponentially with organizing my thoughts and be able to create a viable product or at least sound somewhat intelligent? What happens to my weeks and my months and my years when I don't track it and organize it in such a way that I achieve an outcome at the end of it? And wherever you're at, God loves you and He has a purpose. It's just, kind of, sorry, I was thinking Rocky, but, you may have gotten to this point now in order to be someone that is shown off later to show, like, hey, I didn't know what I was doing before, but now I do. And now you can lead people through that. So, God, I thank you right now that you're encouraging the people that are on this, that you're going to show them love and you're going to show them that they can do it. And although it may be difficult, that this transition from maybe not planning to organizing your life may feel strange, but that they'll get there. In Jesus Christ's name we pray, amen. And we'll catch you later. Bye.